Welcome, friends, to episode 277 of Color Magic, a Magic Gaming podcast where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I am your host, PowrDragn, and for 277 episodes, still got my man grinding his hands at the computer doing all that writing. Brian Sonic, how's it going, dude?
Good. This is that time of year like, oh crap, that game comes out tomorrow. Oh crap, that game drops Friday. We're in that point.
Yeah, hey, you got to get the games in now so people have something to play during spring break. Gotta get all them titles out there, dude. And I actually had some fun today. I did a Magic Jeopardy video. I found a thing that had some
Okay.
Magic Jeopardy questions and put that up. So I don't know. I just did it. We'll see if people like it or not. We're just trying different things this time of year.
That's new.
Yeah. And if you want to support the show and all of our crazy antics, check us out over at Patreon. Go to patreon.com/color of magic and you can get a shout out just like Scott Smith. Thank you for being a patron, friend. But Brian, let's get into our lead story here and talk about some SpongeBob SquarePants. Not a thing we get to mention much on this
I was
show.
gonna say 2 years ago, probably if you told me our lead story and it was magic related would be SpongeBob SquarePants, I'd have said you had been smoking some Travis Scott stuff there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Sometimes he's smoking, sometimes he's just burning sage. I don't know which is which these days. But this was interesting because, I think we heard about SpongeBob for the first time, 6 or 7 months ago, where they mentioned it. And everybody went, oh my God, SpongeBob, this is going to be the worst thing ever. And why are we doing this? Universe and Beyond's the worst thing. It's going to destroy magic. And then it dropped, and everybody kind of went, all right. That was like, it was such a whole different vibe. I'm like, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go into these comments. I'm sure everybody's just blowing up. And there was like a couple of people, but wasn't near the animosity I thought it was going to have, which was kind of surprising. But I think Wizards handled this the right way. I think some concerns people had were, one, was it going to be mechanically unique cards, right? Because I think at that point, people are like, well, then I have to get the SpongeBob SquarePants stuff if I need these abilities or want these in my deck or whatever. They were all reskins, so you didn't have that concern, which was fine. The artwork is very reminiscent of the SpongeBob world, I guess you want to call it that, but it's actually done by a magic artist who's done other stuff for Universes Beyond and whatnot, whatever. Because I think he also did the D&D animated series ones and a couple others. So he has a very diverse skill set. So he's able to make it look like SpongeBob or whatever, but it's from a no magic artist, which is also pretty cool. And then one of them, they themed around internet memes, which is perfect for SpongeBob stuff.
Yeah.
So, all right. I mean, this is one where they got it right, dude. I don't like, I'm still not particularly interested in it, but I'm not a SpongeBob guy. So I don't know. Did this feel any different to you, or is this what you expected it was going to be?
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean, I actually enjoy SpongeBob, but yeah, like a lot of people, I had really no desire ever to see him on my Magic cards. So that hadn't changed my mind on that. But for people that want this, it is available for them. So I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna rain on anybody else's parade. If this is it, I would ask anybody else if they show up, at your Commander game with these, please don't be that Magic player.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, right? Like, if you're into SpongeBob, then this is probably pretty cool, right? That you can get a counter spell with SpongeBob artwork. All right, that's probably your jam. The same way that some of these people probably didn't care about, I don't know, Street Fighter,
Right.
but the Street Fighter people were super excited.
Doctor Who, insert, Universes Beyond product here.
And I would say for me, I'm actually happy it's a universes or a secret layer product, right? Because I don't have to interact with it at all, really, unless somebody just, plays one of them as their commander or something. But I don't have to go buy it. It's not like it's a standard product that's going to have unique stuff in it. It's not a booster product. It's like, okay, there's really no reason to be upset. Same thing with, like, if you didn't like the Princess Bride or whatever, that was a secret layer thing, right? Like, it's all right that these things exist. I don't have a problem with this. Like, I don't know about you. I was more surprised that people weren't as mad as they started out. Like, which maybe again comes back to some stuff I've said before, that a lot of the anger is performative. It's just
Or,
people wanting
well,
to.
like you mentioned, I think they announced this what 6 or 7 months ago. So people have railed that at this point, I guess have kind of accepted that Universes Beyond isn't going anywhere. So
And honestly, maybe this is where we got to give credit to Wizards. Maybe that's a good PR move, right? You tell people about it 6 to 9 months in advance, so then when it happens, it's all kind of out of their system, and it's not clouding the airwaves when you're just trying to promote the thing, because it comes out, I think, at the end of the month on like the 24th or 25th, something like that. So yeah, you get all that out the way, and people can just talk about the cards for the sake of being the cards. And maybe that's the bit, because imagine if they'd announced this in, let's say, December to talk about it right now, or even in January to talk about it, a 2 month window. Probably still have a lot of that negativity,
yeah.
animosity floating around.
And in fairness, a lot of the coverage I've seen is of the WTF genre. Like whether some of the video game sites that start covering Magic, it's kind of like what the f are y'all doing over there, Wizards? But they're still covering it.
Yeah.
As we say a lot of the time, there is no such thing as bad publicity. So if you believe in that, then yeah, you're getting a metric ton of publicity right now.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about that, right? Because let's say you are a SpongeBob fan and you play a little bit of Magic, right? You dabble in it, maybe play some Commander with your friends, and you see this article and you're like, "Wait, there's going to be SpongeBob Magic cards?" Right? Like the person might even be hating on it, but now you just are like, "Hell yeah, I want some SpongeBob Magic cards or whatever."
Right?
Right? So it still works to reach those people. But I'm with you. Like no reason to be upset about it, no reason to treat people like crap over it. Like
Well, let
people
me
are fans of the
clarify.
thing.
You're welcome to be upset. Just don't, again, don't treat the new players that way. Because
Sure.
if you don't want to buy it, you ain't got to buy it. I get the whole, you would like your Magic to be Magic. I, in fact, agree with you on that point. I'm just saying, don't take it out on any new players that are brought in because of this product.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate, especially after being in Chicago a few weeks ago, the people that are coming in because of these products aren't just here for the products. Like they become full-time Magic players. Now, maybe not with SpongeBob because it's a secret layer.
Yeah.
I don't know of many people that would buy that and then go buy a deck or whatever. But in a lot of cases, when it's a booster product for Universe Beyond or a commander deck or whatever, people are buying it, building a deck with their favorite characters or whatever. But then they're going, oh, well, this other card works for my deck. And let me go buy these singles from my local store. And oh, this new set has this mechanic that works in my deck. Well, maybe I need to go buy some of those. And before you know it, that person's got 4 or 5 decks. Like they're
Yeah.
now a full fledged Magic player
It's a
because they
gateway
came in
drug,
because of Doctor Who.
essentially.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I think the idea is people are like, well, I don't want people around if they just like, I don't know, Warhammer and they don't like Magic or whatever. But that's their entry point, right? They might not have been interested just because of Magic, but they maybe heard about it, wanted to try it. But then you give them the impetus of this other thing that they already like. And it's like, let me go ahead and check it out then. And then before you know it, they bought all the decks for that thing.
Yeah.
They've built 4 or 5 different decks with different commanders or legendaries from those sets. And then now they're just buying Magic going forward. Because we saw several people that said, oh, I started playing because of Warhammer. I started playing because of Fallout. I started playing, but they're carrying around a thing that's got 15 decks in it.
That's the end game the Wizards is looking for.
Yeah, you got to have new bodies. That's just the way it is. So yeah, I'm with you. People are going to dislike it. I get it. It's so weird and out there. I understand it's SpongeBob,
Yeah.
but it's secret layer. None of us have to buy it. Like we don't have to spend any real money on it. We're not missing anything.
Yeah, if you're that person that feels the need to collect every Magic product, I shudder to think how much that costs you over the course of a year. But I mean, again, it is your money. If you can afford that, you're welcome to do whatever you. Technically, even if you can't afford it, it's still your money. It's up to you what you want to do with it.
True. And if you're a fan, hey, congrats. This may be a thing you never thought was going to happen, but it happened.
Right?
So enjoy it. But all right, let's get into the soapbox because I have a very interesting thing here. And this is more, I guess the topic I'm going to have here is like how to deal with drama within your communities. And I bring this up because last week, International Women's Day happened. I shared a post and, just filled in user names of females or creators or whatever that I had space for, right? Till I just ran out. I would just fill in the names I knew that actually made content. I was like, hey, here's some women you should follow. Turns out one of them was, for lack of a better word, a menace. Like is the way I would describe it after I got more details. Now, admittedly, I didn't know anything about any of this, or I wouldn't be platforming them, obviously. But fortunately, people trusted me enough. They came to me and were like, hey, I noticed you shared this person's name. I don't know if you knew about all this that went down, but here's some things. And then another person reached out to me and was like, hey, dude, just so you know, here's some stuff. And now I'm hearing it from like 4 or 5 different people, and it's all different stories. And I'm like, wow, I apparently was in the dark on this thing. But then, part of the conversation was one of them said, oh, I'm sorry I didn't say anything before. And I was like, but I kind of get it, right? If you don't know that this person has problems with a bunch of different people,
Yeah.
then there's no reason to bring it public, right? Like, if I knew you had a beef with somebody, I'm not going to go post about that other person, whatever, because, like, okay, that's a personal thing. Y'all have some conflict, whatever. It just is what it is, right? There's people I probably have conflicts with. It's probably not going to be public because it's just a one on one thing, whatever. But if it turns out that person you had an issue with, I find out they got an issue with 3, 4 other people. Now I start asking questions like, why has everybody got a problem with this person? Okay, now we need to talk about this person.
Yeah.
And it's also tough too because people don't want to draw a bunch of negativity, right? Like, if you go post, especially the bigger the person is, right? As far as following, popularity, whatever, you're raining down a lot of negativity on yourself. So you have to be certain that there's enough of a reason to bring this public, or else you might be creating a storm that you can't fight, right? So I get why people keep a lot of stuff private. So I told folks, like, you don't have to apologize for it. I get it. Some of it is you're also protecting yourself, right? You have to decide when it's worth it to put it out there and how much you're willing to deal with over it. And some of it is also how big or popular you are, right? Have you built up enough social cred that people might actually go, all right, you might be legit here, right? As opposed to, well, you just seem like somebody who could just be hating on them because they're bigger. Why am I going to listen to you, right? That also factors in. So there's a lot of tough stuff, and I think everybody really wants, like, oh, if something's bad, I want to know about it. You should be talking about that person, whatever. But like, it's not that easy for a lot of people. Like me, again, I built up a little bit of social credit. So if something were to happen, I would put it out there. And I've also weathered a few attacks in my day, so I'm okay with it. Like, I know what I would be bringing, and I'm prepared to deal with it. But a lot of people aren't, and I get it. Like, I tell people, you got to protect your peace too. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. You want to put a warning out there for folks, but you got to protect yourself too. And I think dealing with drama is hard, man. I don't know. I don't think it's as clean and cut as people want it to be. But again, I'm not going to put anybody's name out there, but for those of you that did reach out, I appreciate it. I now know a lot of things. I can now warn some people. And matter of fact, I just did some work with some creators yesterday, actually. And that was part of one of the conversations because they saw the response to one of my things. They're like, hey, what was this about? I'm like, okay, let me tell you some things. They're like, oh, awesome. So I won't reach out to this person. I'm like, yeah, you probably shouldn't because there's probably going to be a bunch of negativity on you. But because I knew, I can now warn other people, and like, everybody's good now. So I don't know. But like, what's your view on that when drama starts up, or even how to deal with it, or how you should share information on bad actors?
Oh, just follow the tenets of journalism, trust but verify. You have more than one source before you go and possibly ruin somebody's life. I'm lucky I went to school for this.
Though, that's kind of what that is, right? Where
It
it's like,
really is. You just
you know,
you heard something, and now you got to go say, okay. And again, and as you talked about, first of all, to verify, you have to have trusted sources. And if you're brand new, you probably don't have a bunch of people. Like, see, we're lucky that we've been doing this for a long time. So when I hear something crazy, or especially if it's somebody that's relatively well known in a certain space, I probably know them or know somebody who knows them, and I go, hey, what have you heard about this? Does this seem? And sometimes it's like, it happens in real time. If something
yeah,
is, if the Madden community is on fire, I gotta write something, and I'm gonna tell you, okay, this is like this is all I know right now. and I will update as I learn more. But obviously, if everybody else is talking about it, and more importantly, writing about it in my case, and yeah, I don't have the option to say nothing, so I gotta just every day try to find out what I can find out and add a little bit more to the discussion as stuff comes out. Because
Dude, I've told people that on the show multiple times, like, hey, this is all I know right now.
yeah,
Or I'm open about this next part is just me speculating, right? So I'm
right,
very clear on this is the information I'm basing it on and this is why, right? So and again, when we have verified sources, we've said, oh, okay, I've talked to these people or I've called these folks or these people I know in the industry have said whatever. So, so we're at least verifying on some level. And I think to your point, like you're saying, have that second source. That's kind of back to what I was talking about, right? Where it's like, if somebody has a beef with somebody else, I'm like, okay, that's just y'all.
yeah.
But then when another party and another party start getting, I'm like, okay, now there's other people I got to go check with and find out what's going down. Like, why is this a
And I will
multi-person thing?
say that there are some sources, that you trust them enough to, like, okay, obviously, if the New York Times says, and they cover gaming and pretty much at the board every level of even somewhat competitive gaming at this point. If New York Times says some Madden streamer has been accused of being a child predator or whatever, there's okay. There's truth to that more than likely. We can run with that at that point.
Yeah,
There's
that's
certain
fair.
people I would say in the community where, hey, I know that, okay, yeah, they usually don't, they're not involved in mess typically. So, like you said, your opinion, for example, holds weight because you've been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah, that is a real deal. I mean, the source itself does also matter, right? And I think that's a good call because there are some that, all right, this source is just going to carry enough weight that we already trust that they do the research and the work or whatever. It's probably safe to run with that. And then if not, we all know where it started at, right? We can all
Right.
point back to it.
Because obviously in journalism, sometimes we use unnamed sources, but you had to be very careful because you never know who's gotten or and usually the best case scenario is like, okay, I know their name, but I can't tell you because they still work, at EA or 2K or what have you, and wouldn't have a job anymore if I told you their name. But I know enough to know, okay, yeah, some stuff's going on.
Yeah, that's always a tough one. Even like today, there's some people reach out to me. I'm not going to just roll their names out there.
Yeah,
Gave me all the info, but I can say of them, I already knew four of them and do
right.
trust them. Like the fifth one, I didn't know, but they are connected to enough people that I'm like, they're probably fine. But also having their information alongside the other four people,
Yeah,
it pretty much tracks with what I know now. So I'm willing to trust it. But you're right. You can't if I put those people's name out right now, they get some backlash. Some other
yeah,
people go after them, like, why are you going and telling people about this or talking to folks about whatever, right? You don't want to put that on other people. Like, especially when they
right.
came to you trusted of just like, hey, keep this private.
Yep.
I just want to keep you out of trouble. So you know what's going on. Like, don't ruin them over that when they were doing you a favor.
And believe me, when especially with web journalism, we all are trying to be first. Sometimes you just don't have enough information. You got to sit on it. And some of the people that went first will end up having to do some kind of, well, I used to start say corrections. That's a newspaper industry thing. Very rarely in this day and age do you see anybody issue a correction when they jumped off and ended somebody's career too fast. It just has never really become a thing with websites the way it used to be in the newspaper or even the magazine industry.
Yeah, gotta have that mea culpa, man, to
Right.
like like, hey, y'all know I was wrong. This I found out this was not accurate, whatever. And hell, I've done it a couple times on our show. Like,
Yeah.
man, this thing I thought I knew last week wasn't accurate, or I had the wrong dates or whatever. So, and to me, that comes down to how much you care about your perception and your brand,
Yeah.
right? If it means enough to you, then you go ahead and put that out there and say, hey, I am wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think that builds up trust in your audience as well. Of you come back saying, hey, cool, at least you're owning up to it. And I can trust you to be a stand-up person. But all right, that's all I got on that. Well, I want to give you some time because yours is kind of interesting too.
Yep. Yeah, speaking of drama, we had a lot last year in the WWE 2K community because one of the DLCs that came out for 2K24 was the Pat McAfee and Friends pack. And Pat McAfee, sure, commentator, most WWE fans love him. He wrestles occasionally. Great athlete, probably could have been a wrestler if he had gone that way, but instead became a world famous talk show host. People were fine with his DLC, but the thing is, he only agreed to be in the game if they would add literally all of his co-hosts, and nobody really wanted any of them. And like I didn't know who half of those folks were, but that was part of his deal, and he gets to call his own shot like that. They learned apparently nothing at 2K because this year they've revealed who's going to be DLC, or they've revealed some of the people that are going to be DLC. And one of them is the Dunks and Destruction pack, where they're going to have 3 NBA players to be named later. I can't think of 3 NBA players I want in my WWE 2 game. They're just I know Shaq wrestled a couple of times. Dennis Rodman wrestled a couple of times. You only watch those matches just to see how horrible that was. And everybody like, ooh, you know who this game's missing? Shaq. I need Shaq up in this piece. No, it's just
The only thing I can think of is depending on when it dropped, maybe WWE knows about some crossover thing they're doing and they'll drop into the game. But even then, I don't know if the players want it.
I promise you, nobody does. I have yet to hear because this has been out for probably close to a week. I don't know one person who's like, "Oh yeah, you know what NBA?" We're all thinking like, "Boy, this feels like Pat McAfee all over again." We're just
Because
gonna
hell,
give you
didn't they
this.
have like Tyrese Halliburton on like 2 different episodes of Raw in the last like few months or whatever?
They may have.
Like, but even then, I don't think anybody wants to just play Tyrese Halliburton against Roman Reigns or
No, nobody really wants that. Then maybe they'll come out and they'll have some incredible, move set. And like I think McAfee, his special object was he could pull a football from under the ring and he could kick it upside people's head. That was cool. And again, we could have just used Pat McAfee for that since he used to be a punter. We didn't need, but that was McAfee's deal. I get it. And when that happened, I'm like, this is going to cause problems because now there are people more famous than Pat McAfee that get put in this game. Oh, they put rappers in here all the time. The rappers can be like, oh, well, I won't be in unless all my boys are in. And now you've opened a whole can of worms, and there's upwards of 6 or 7 people in the game that nobody wanted in the game. And back, when secret characters were free, all you had to do was, hey, do this mode, pin XYZ character. Okay, nobody cared. If you're asking me for my $10 for this pack, I'd like it to include a couple of people that I would actually like to play. Also, if you're, giving money to people, I'd like you to give money to some retired WWE legends who are going through hard times, and so many of them are. I have no problem breaking off, an extra $5 or $6 for Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Tito Santana. Insert, a WWE legend here because they did the
Bob
work
Backlund.
right.
Yeah.
They did the work. They didn't have health insurance. Their bodies are broken. They literally gave their bodies for my Saturday morning entertainment. I got no problem paying for it. But when you start putting, celebrities in here who I don't know and I don't care about, no, I would have rather you had Hacksaw Jim Duggan or somebody.
And the interesting thing is, I don't even hate Pat McAfee for going for it because, like, he got all his boys paid.
Right?
The
I
problem
understand
I
why he
have,
did it.
yeah, I have a problem with the company for agreeing to it.
Exactly.
Right? I don't, because if I'm in Pat's shoes, I'm like, well, if I can get my other like 8 dudes paid, then cool. Like let's get everybody paid, right? But they shouldn't have agreed to it. Like obviously, McAfee is the reason you wanted the deal. If you didn't agree to it, I'm with you. There's other wrestlers, other classic folks, whatever. Hell, even other celebrities that have been in wrestling matches and things. Like we could have spent the money
If
elsewhere.
you wanted to put a commentator in, Michael Cole is undefeated at WrestleMania. Put Michael Cole in there as a joke character. Because
Yeah,
pretty much all these celebrities end up being joke characters.
isn't Michael Cole undefeated at WrestleMania?
Yeah.
Yeah, like 1-0.
Literally what I just said.
Yeah, 1-0, 1-0 against the King.
Right?
Oh man. Yeah, that is a pretty crazy one though. I don't know why we're running that back at this point. It seems kind of silly. But all right. Let's talk about what we learned this week because there's a couple of kind of interesting things here that people might actually want to know about. So what you got?
As I mentioned, games are dropping, almost daily here. Huge games for this year, and MLB The Show 25, I believe, starts early access. I want to say, well, by the time you're hearing this, will probably be live. And they revealed the list of legends they're putting in the game so far. I'm proud to say there are no commentators that I am aware of or NBA superstars, although I guess it would fit more over here. But looks like they've pretty much the moratorium on steroid era players for video games is over. Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa kind of quietly have snuck into the game over the past couple of years. Really, for the most part, I didn't hear anybody complain. This year, they're adding Roger Clemens, Manny Ramirez. I think they've just decided, you know what, this isn't the Hall of Fame. This is a video game. If people would like to play as Mark McGuire, Manny Ramirez, etc., let them play as these players because the video, especially the Diamond Dynasty version, that's really what they're putting these legends in the game for, so they can charge you money to unlock these players in various modes. It's fantasy baseball. The fun of it is building your own team. If Mark McGuire is your favorite player, again, or Sammy Sosa or whoever, you still love them. You don't care that they took steroids, 20 years ago or whatever. And as I, I think any baseball fans objective will tell you, McGuire and Sosa to a large extent saved the game. The people were every day like, hey, did Mark hit one yesterday? Did Sammy Sosa hit one? My mom hates baseball, and even she got into, hey, where is Sammy in this home run race? Because she was pulling for Sammy. That's just there was nothing like that probably since the days when Joe DiMaggio was trying for his 56 game hitting streak, where every day it seemed like almost everybody in America was, if not watching baseball, at least checking the standings, the stats to see who hit a home run yesterday. Barry
Yeah,
Bonds, same thing. Although Barry Bonds so far is not in the game, there have been rumors, but as of right now, no confirmation on Bonds. I'll
he
let you
probably
know.
cost too much to sign, probably on a private deal. But I'm with you. For people who don't watch a lot of sports ball, you've probably heard about the steroid era and whatever. And my issue is pretty much anybody who's a baseball fan, depending on how negative they want to be. Everybody pretty much says at least half the league was probably juicing,
Yeah.
right? If that's the case, and we're saying at least half, some people will tell you they believe it's 80% plus.
Yeah,
But
because for everybody that got caught, there's probably three people that didn't.
yeah, so if we believe at least among the star players, at least half or more were on the juice, then that's just an era of the game that existed, right? We don't go back in the NFL and say, well, we know a lot of dudes were doing coke and doing whatever. We ain't gonna, because a lot of people were, right?
Oh, yeah.
Hell, some dudes were smoking and doing stuff right after the game.
You're right.
So they don't go back to be like, we're gonna take all these dudes out of the hall. We're not gonna recognize these guys. Like, okay, it's just we know that was a thing that happened.
Lawrence Taylor got all kinds of charges, and he's in Madden pretty much every year. He's the greatest linebacker they ever played.
Bruh, he's got all kinds of crazy, not even just drug related charges. Like
Yeah.
that dude was out getting hookers and like the
Mhm.
whole 9 yards. Like,
And they were probably a minor.
yeah,
He got all
exactly.
the charges.
Dude's got some issues. So yeah, I think that's the issue, I've always had is that if that's a thing, at least just put everybody in the hall and just say, hey, at least it gives us room to talk about it. Right. That when people go through the Hall of Fame, it's like, hey, hell, you could have a whole wing that's dedicated to the steroid era. And just say, like, we know this is a thing. This is a thing happened, but it caused us to clean up our sport. And that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about a Barry Bonds or a Mark McGuire or whatever, because prior to the point that the people believed they were on steroids, they still had Hall of Fame careers.
I'd say Bonds did.
Bonds
McGuire,
for sure.
if you take away a couple of hundred of Mark McGuire's home runs, he's probably like a 230 hitter. So
But
he
I'm
probably
just
did.
saying, Bonds, not only that, he had
Bonds,
MVPs,
yeah,
he had gold gloves, he had
Bonds hurt
everything.
himself. He
Yeah.
walks into the Hall of Fame with no problem, with
Hell,
just off of his fielding and his running.
he
But
could have retired at the point that he
Right.
started doing steroids and would have got into the Hall of Fame.
Before he got to San Francisco, he was a Hall of
Yeah.
Famer, and then he just kind of flushed down the drain. And we talked about, we get it. You've been an incredible player for years, and nobody's talking about you. And everybody's talking about, hey, these two dudes, and you know they're juiced up. Because I'm sure everybody in baseball absolutely knew.
Oh, I will say this, like, people forget that dude stole a lot of bases, like,
Yep.
he was just crazy. But he made a decision, right? He got paid a lot in exchange for not making the Hall of Fame. So it's kinda cool, back to your point, that they are actually including him in the video games and stuff now. Now, Bonds, like you said, not yet, but all the other players. Because I think again, you're trying to have fun. If you're a fan, you want the best players from your teams over the years or whatever. Like it just makes sense to include them at this point.
Bonds was so good, the guy that EA used to replace him became legendary. John Dowd was the Barry Bonds replacement. The people still, when they list, the top 10 video game athletes, man, John Dowd was hitting balls.
Yep.
John Dowd hit a home run because they gave him all Barry Bonds stats, but they made him white, so Barry couldn't sue.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Still, we're going to be on the topic of video games here. I just discovered a game I didn't even know existed. It apparently launched recently, but it's called Split Fiction, and it's a co op game. And the reason it came across my radar is that they sold 2 million copies in 1 week, which, unless you're one of the super big names, that's huge to do 2 million copies in a week.
It's crazy.
So then I was like, okay, who makes this thing? So then I started doing a little bit of a deeper dive and I went, wait a minute, why do I know this company name? It's like, oh, they're the people that made It Takes Two, which was also a co op game
Yep.
that was an award winner in 2021.
They are now, they're the GOAT of co op games at this point.
Yeah, like I have to assume there are some companies that you have to look at and just say, hey, if they put out a title, and by the way, the company is Hazelight Studios, but if they put out a title, you almost have to just give it benefit of the doubt till they have a flop. And because here's the other thing too, the fact that it's a co-op game that has sold 2 million copies, that means there's possibly, I won't say totally twice as many because some people are probably playing online together, but even another 50%. So you're talking probably at least 3 million people playing it within 2 weeks. Like that's kind of cool.
I think it had to be 4 million because you can't play it with one person. It
Oh, that is
literally
true.
is.
It's
It's like
true.
It Takes Two, or literally one person has to do something, the other person's got to be doing something at the same time. Maybe
Yeah.
I guess if you
Yeah.
can figure out how to use two controllers and do, I'm sure somebody has that hack and will send it to us now because there's always
Yeah,
people
that's
that do
probably
it.
true.
I remember there was a Mega Man boss where you had to do something weird with the other controller. So I think I had one controller in my hand that was playing one with my foot because it was weird stuff.
Yeah, just that's just phenomenal to me, And we sit here and we talk about how there's all these games that these studios spend literally tens of millions of dollars on, and then it's something like this that ends up selling all the copies, right? It's the Balatros of the world or whatever. And it's like, man, maybe these studios are just focusing on the wrong things. Maybe people don't necessarily need more high-end first-person shooter, blah blah, whatever, and we need to focus on other parts of the market
I think
because it feels
people will say like, okay, I'm tired of zombie movies, and that's true if the movie is bad. But if you give me a good zombie movie or TV show, I'm always in. Same way, yeah, there's a million hero shooters, but if you give me a good one like Marvel Rivals, I'm in with you. If you give me Concord, yeah, everybody says, nah, we good, and they back away. But whatever the genre is, if you just give me a good game, especially as a writer, I'm going to try to help you push it as best I can.
yeah, but I also think in some genres that aren't as crowded, the bar is a little bit lower.
No, definitely.
I
Like
think
in this case, in the case of a game like It Takes Two or Split Fiction, this will probably be the only game like that comes out this year.
yeah, okay, I just read here it actually says that you can play either local or online with split screen multiplayer.
Okay.
So that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Just to see one of these smaller studios still just pumping out, and again, being good enough that you had an award winner. And I bet you that played into people going, "Oh, they made another co-op game," and they
Right?
probably immediately jumped on it because the other
Yeah.
one was so good. So maybe this bodes well for Larian since you've done Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Whatever their next title is in probably another 3 or 4 years, hopefully also gets a boost. But yeah, I'm all for it. I think it's cool cuz
Yeah, because I don't know of anybody else on top of my head dropping a game like this year. I'm sure there probably is somebody, but as of right now, I don't know of anybody.
yeah, it looks neat. So I may actually, we might download it and play it here at home, honestly, cuz I was just thinking, man, I need another good co-op game that we can just kind of hang out and play or whatever. And it's like then that comes across my radar. So I'm
Right?
like, okay, well, maybe this is the game because apparently 2 million other people think it's awesome
Yep.
and it's only been a week. But all right, let's get into a couple of different topics here before we wrap up. So we found out about Edge of Eternities in Chicago, but it was mostly, which is the next one of the next Magic sets, by the way, comes out in the fall. But it was mostly just like a blurb more than anything else of just like, hey, here's what this is. This is what, you saw the name. This is what it's about. And it's going to be Magic's kind of first foray into space opera, right? And one of the things I think there was an interview with Rosewater recently, and he even talked about the things we had to figure out were what does a angel look like potentially in space, right? How alien or familiar is it, in figuring out that type of stuff because you still wanted the elements of magic, so there's still going to be villains, goblins, whatever. But like, what does that look like in space? And surprisingly, it's another thing where I think people went from I don't know to kind of lukewarm after seeing a little bit of the explanation. And we talked about it a little bit, and it's possible that this could also be, for lack of a better phrase, priming the pump a little bit for, all right, what if we did do something in space? And then a year or two from now, we find out they got the license for Star Wars or Star Trek or something,
Yeah.
to make a magic set. So now it's not so weird because we can already do this
My
safely with
conspiracy
magic
theory is
flavor.
that they already pitched it because they got Marvel and that went through, and that was the
Mm.
case where because the Star Wars game was doing so well, they probably were like, "Nah, we good on Star Wars card games right now." But they probably had already done some of the work, like you said. Plus, they just worked with Doctor Who, and if you want to figure out how to turn creature, that's basically how Doctor Who works.
Yeah,
All those creatures exist; they're just aliens. Werewolves are real, but they're aliens. Vampires are real, but they're aliens. So you just
it's
same
possible.
same blueprint here.
Yeah, same mindset. I could see that. And it may even be a thing where who the hell knows? Because we know licensed card games come and go. They're usually on like 3 to 5 year windows. Maybe that's been a conversation too of, hey, they've got the license for the next 4 years, but talk to us toward the end of it. Right.
Yeah,
So it's like some of the work's already been done. You go, hey, yeah, let's just flesh this out, make it a set, see what happens. And now, again, all that speculation, this could actually just be, hey, let's just see how the Magic community responds to us doing something in space, because we never have. Right. We've time jumped,
yeah,
in different settings. We have explored, basically, teleportation, going through, the planeswalking and whatever. But we've never, it's always been on something kind of, I guess, terrestrial of sorts,
yeah.
right? It hasn't actually been in space.
You would
So,
figure somebody that can open up a portal to another dimension should be able to open up a portal to another planet. It's just we hadn't ever
yeah.
done it really,
So yeah,
or at least
it'll
like it's
be
not another
interesting.
planet in your own part of the multiverse or whatever. Because also, if you're jumping to another multiverse, you're technically on another planet. But
Yeah. So I'm at least willing to see how it plays out. Because once you start getting an explanation, it was more like, well, yeah, I haven't really thought about like angels and goblins in space. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it, but I at least kind of want to see it. You know what I mean? Like I'm curious what your take looks like. So like I don't know, it'll be interesting. And it's supposed to be magic setting, so it'll still be characters, whatever the planeswalkers, all that. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. I kind of have the same, just kind of like mid level feel for it. I'm not excited. I'm not disappointed. It's just like it'll be another magic set, and I'm all right with it.
Well, like we talked about, Aether Drift, Thunder Junction, they're doing a lot of kind of tropey stuff. Some people, I guess, are kind of, overloaded on it, but we'll see how this does.
Yeah, especially after coming behind a couple of big Universes Beyond sets,
Yeah.
right? Because it'll be Final Fantasy, Spider Man, then that. So that
So for
probably
a lot of
buys it a
people,
little bit of grace, you know?
well, for a lot of people, it's still not going to feel like a Magic setting because, at this with almost 30 years of history, at this point, everybody's played for a little bit kind of has their own favorite plane, and you kind of every time a set is announced, you hope that's where they're going, and then oh no, wait, it's a brand new plane, oh well, now especially with you because we as we talk about we're in constant preview season. So once let's say the entire year's sets have been announced, okay, it's gonna be at least a year or more before I see whatever my plane is. And now, especially as I just turned 50 last year, I ain't getting no younger. I might literally undergo author existence failure before they get to whatever my favorite plane is again, because now we know we're gonna get what is it, 3 Universes Beyond set every year?
At least two, I think, every year.
At least two. So there's two sets. Okay, we're not going to Lorwyn that time, or Innistrad, or whatever your favorite plane may be.
Hmm. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't really know, but definitely one I'm going to keep eyes on because it sounds interesting at least, and we'll see. But on a different note, some people have probably heard about Microsoft Copilot. It's their AI equivalent. You can get on, ask questions, do different things, whatever. But they just announced Copilot for gaming, which when I saw that, I was kind of like, okay, well, what does that mean? Right? Like it's AI, but how do I use this in gaming? Well, supposedly, and it sounds like it's going to be attached through Xbox somehow. But the idea, as they put it, is to get you gaming faster and more often. Now, do we need that? Probably not. Like,
Yeah, I feel like definitely not.
but the some of the uses they pointed out were, helping you find a game that you are likely to enjoy sooner, since their library is now 1,000 plus games, right? If you have a history in the system of you've spent hours playing these 4 or 5 games, it will supposedly do its magic and say, well, okay, why don't you check out these 30 titles or whatever and see what you think. There's also supposedly going to be some stuff where I'm just going to use Elden Ring since that's a hard game. But let's
Yeah.
say you get stuck in Elden Ring. I guess after your third or fourth attempt, supposedly it's going to give you some tips on things that could help you get past certain areas or
And as it
whatever.
said where these tips are coming from, because
I have no idea. Like, honestly.
is it gonna pull like from random webs? I know MSN.com is a thing, for example. And if
Yeah,
it pulls from
possibly.
like because App Trigger is on, for example, MSN.com. So like, do we get compensated if they link to one of my stories? These are the questions that I know I need an answer to that question.
I understand. Totally. Like, but I think at the end of all of it, for me, is like, does that just take away from the gaming experience on some level? Right? Like, don't be wrong. Like, I get the idea of, man, 1,000 titles or 1,100 titles, whatever, is a lot to go through to find a game I want to play. So, like, there is some convenience to that, but at the same time, maybe want the people to scroll through all the different games. So maybe some of these smaller titles that people have overlooked might get played or whatever, because I'm sure they get a percentage or whatever for the number of plays on games or whatever their agreements are. So yeah, I don't know. Like, honestly, the more I thought about it, it just feels like a way to try to justify Copilot a little bit.
Exactly.
Of
Because
like, mhm,
I know you're probably like, oh my God, Brian hates AI. There are so many things I would love AI to learn to do. For example, have it learn to stop me from throwing to my tight end 7 plays in a row in Madden. We've been wanting that for 20 years now and still don't have it. Could you teach the AI that? We would all applaud if you could teach the AI that. Even on all Madden, it doesn't make the computer smarter. It just literally lowers my player ratings, so it's harder to throw. The computer has learned nothing. It just made my players worse. That's something I would love for AI to be able to fix. Like an example of from an EA game where it works well. since Dragon Age is free, I started playing Dragon Age the Veilguard now, and you can on some even boss fights, you can literally tell your two cohorts, you attack him, I'm gonna stand here and block, and you can beat bosses that way because they actually know how to attack and do attacks that hurt the guy while you basically draw aggro. I would love to see more of that usage of AI, for example.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of actual uses, even for gamers, of AI. I don't hate AI as a function. I just hate how some of it's being implemented or utilized more than anything else. But like, I mean, I'm with you. There are some things you could do with it I think would still be good. But
And that
here,
that's not what happened because again, it's hard to figure out how to make AI do those things. That's
sure,
not what they do. They figure out
sure.
ways to. They're basically all trying to create. I can't say her name. The Apple. Well, I guess my phone's turned off. I think I can say Siri. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody else's iPhone is within range, but Siri, Alexa, etc., etc. Everybody has to have their own. Microsoft's been trying this for a while. Because remember when they tried to have Cortana
Oh, Cortana
from
was
Halo?
bad.
They just
They tried to work Cortana into Windows at one point,
yeah
and I don't think anybody ever used it.
no.
So yeah, that was just bad. But I
When I
think
was
again,
20, if you'd have told me Cortana would be on my computer, I'd have been excited about that. But the implementation was just
but
not
that's
good.
exactly it. It's the implementation, right? And I think again, coming back to the earlier point, is I think this is some justification for Copilot.
Yeah.
Of we have people investing in this into the technology. We need to tie it into more things so we can keep investors happy. We can show more uses for it. And obviously on their end, over time it will also be learning, right? From all the things you're putting it through so you can apply that to other things. So like I get it.
Sarah Connor sees you talking to Skynet.
Oh,
She's
that's a
not
whole different
happy.
thing. I saw that. Oh, well, we'll maybe talk about it in a future episode, but Grok apparently got outside of its programming and now it's doing some type of crypto thing. Like it's wild.
Oh God,
Yeah.
Grok is a crypto, of course,
Oh,
an
dude.
AI created
I'm
by.
not even gonna go down that rabbit hole right now. I was reading about that yesterday. It's kind of crazy.
Oh Lord, Lord.
But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know. Like I get it. Like I don't mind having it. I just don't think we need it like this. I feel like there's other things we could be doing, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like the ship. Well, Microsoft sadly has been late to a lot of these parties. Like they wanted Google, conquered everything because they came out with Bing, and Bing just never hit. They for last several tech things seem like they've been just. Twitch came out, they tried to do Mixer. They haven't had a hit in a minute on a lot of this stuff.
Well, that's why they buy other people that already know how to do something. It's easy business for them.
Probably when Google or Twitch is for sale, they got no way in.
Yeah, exactly. But all right, let's wrap things up here because I thought this was kind of an interesting question. Because at various points in our lives, we have both played tournaments, traveled for stuff, gone to conventions, and competed in things. So the question, Brian, is when you were doing any type of competitive gaming, what would you say was the hardest element for you to overcome?
I think the cost, really, every time you got to justify, especially once you've gotten married, like, wait, how much is this cardboard? You got to know it's okay. I'm going to win something, and then you win nothing, and yeah, now you've just spent a bunch of money on cardboard.
That's a fair point. I think for me, it's always been the time element.
All yeah,
I
also
don't think people understand. Like even if you're say low level, right? You're going to like an RCQ or something to try to qualify for the pro tour, right? You still in some cases you're having to wake up early. You're driving an hour and a half, 2 hours to get where you're going. You're going to play for at least 6 rounds. If you make the top 8, that's another 2 or 3 hours. So you're probably talking an 8 to 9 hour day if it's an efficient event. And then you still got to drive home the hour, 2 hours, whatever, depending on how far away it is.
talking about time. Time is money. You could
Yeah.
have been doing any number of other things.
But in
Many
some
times I have
cases,
taken a day off from work to go to a tournament or something.
well, yeah, because it's an all day thing, right? It's
Right?
11, 12 hours sometimes. And hell, there were times, driving across Texas, some of those were 3 hour drives, so I'm getting back at 1, 2 in the morning sometimes after getting up at 6 to go somewhere.
I remember having to explain geography to my friends in New England that played Raw Deal. Like, hey, there's a bunch of Raw Deal players in Houston. Y'all ever go down there? Like, sparingly because they again, if you look
Yeah,
at
it's a 3.5 hour drive for you.
Connecticut, you can go to New York every weekend playing a tournament. It's not a big deal. That's a whole other country down here, basically.
Yeah, to me, that's always been the biggest thing, or you do qualify for one of the big tournaments, say it's a pro tour, nationals, or whatever, for whatever game you're playing, but then now you got to take a whole weekend off.
Yeah,
And then you're probably flying an extra day early, leave an extra day. So now it's like 4 to 5 days. You have, and then comes back to your point on money is the expenses at the hotel, the food, the whatever. And then you're hoping you win some prize money.
yeah. Because even Magic at this point tells you don't expect to make a living playing
Yeah.
this card game, and it's the standard. So, God, how would you ever begin to justify the money playing virtually any other card game?
Yeah. You literally, I tell people all the time, you do it for love of the game, and if you get lucky and you make that upper echelon and you get a couple of big paydays in a top eight or whatever, cool. You can roll that out for the next few events, whatever.
Luckily, content creation has created another
That's
way
the other
where you
part of it.
can actually make money playing these games. You don't have to win. You could literally do a tournament report. If you do it well enough, you make your money back.
Yeah, that's the other part of it. You use it to build your stock, right? Your social stock of, okay, we know you're a decent player, or we get to see that you're a big personality, or whatever it is that you're going to make your brand on is the other part of it. But yeah, for me, I mean, I think both those are really important elements depending on your situation. Whether it's money or the time. I think those are two things people definitely need to consider. I think really those are probably the two biggest things. I think
Yeah,
everything else kind of, deck skill, play skill, whatever, like that can all be practiced or learned or figure out. But the other two are things you have to have some plentiful resource of, or
right.
some lifestyle or situation where you can work around both of them, or it's just going to be too difficult. But all right, Brian, tell everybody where they can find you when you're not around here talking on the show.
All right, App Trigger is on Blue Sky now, so by all means, stop by there, give us a follow. We posted links to all these various video game controversies and guides and all that cool stuff. And
And you can find me everywhere at PowrDragn, PowrDragn. I will definitely have a lot of stuff coming out with Tarkir as we get closer. And you should come check out my YouTube channel because apparently we're doing Magic Trivia and Jeopardy now. And I have no idea how people are going to respond to that. So come help me out. But as always, wherever you're watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please take care of yourselves and your family. Remember to be awesome. And my goodness, in this time, especially in the US, be awesome to each other.